suddenly here we are live. Ah, good to see you, Chitra.
Good to see you too.
Yeah. Ah.
Larissa, it's been one heck of a week or
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, it
And
has.
being in the dog days of summer doesn't help, although you're wearing what you call a jumper, I call a sweater.
I am, because after weeks and weeks of boiling weather, then came the rain, and then 2 days of storm winds, and I'm like, whoa, I'm telling my neighbor to cut her trees. And she's like 80 something. I don't cut trees. Well, I'm worrying for my roof. But it's been a good week on the other side. I've been doing lots of advanced women's Qigong training, which has been
Wonderful.
beautiful. We had 5 hours of training this week. So I'm feeling very, and then I had a house viewing today. So I
Oh,
am,
that's wonderful.
yeah, yeah.
You know that the weather that you're describing is exactly the work that I've been talking about in my membership for late summer, and it actually leads into brain fog in a very interesting way because if you look at which is the topic of today, brain fog
Yeah.
during menopause, and basically, it's exactly what your weather is telling us. So the Earth wants to cool herself down. In whether we had climate change or not, any of those things, the Earth is cooling herself down because it's just so too hot. And the way she does it is by changing water, by using water, because water is cooling, right? As an earth element.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that it may not be hot enough for the or cool enough for the weather, for the rain to happen, but
Mhm.
it is cool enough to make the atmosphere heavy, right?
Mhm.
So the fog comes down, and it's really
Yeah.
all a matter of cold, hot, and water coming together, creating fog. And that's kind of a similar thing that happens for us
Yeah.
when we have brain fog. We want to cool ourselves down. It's a little too hot. Hi, Nan. Welcome. Did we ever introduce ourselves? We haven't. I went
No, we
straight
haven't. We got so excited. We just started to talk about the weather and
brain
brain
fog.
fog. Yeah.
So let's introduce ourselves.
Yes. Go ahead then, Chitra. You were there
So
holding them.
my name is Chitra. I am the host of Art of Menopausing here on Substack, and I am a doctor of Ayurveda specializing in perimenopause, menopause, basically women's health, but my joy is to assist women going through this. Hello, welcome to your original state of being without the reproductive factors. I think that's kind of what it is in a sense. It's not really a change. It's just like returning to a natural state. And I'm always here with my cat because she's loves Ayurveda and she's already attacking me. Okay.
Oh, great. Well, she always comes. It's good to know we have the cat too. Well, I'm Clarissa. I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner. I specialize in women centric Qigong and Chinese dietary therapy. And I also am focused on women's health, and in particular perimenopause, menopause, and what in Chinese medicine we call the second spring. And I think very much about how we transition this journey with far less chaos than we do in the Western world, drawing on traditional practices and ways of living, and then really how we embrace living longer well. which is what we should be able to do. But in today's world, we may be living long in years, but the quality of life is poor. So I'm very focused on improving the quality, the health, not just the health span, but the whole quality of our life.
Yeah, and that's, much needed, the quality of life, because these days it's hard. We're receiving information from too many sources 24/7, and not just sources that are, material sources, but we're also receiving psychic sources. And there's just a lot of fear out there. And yeah, recently I received some feedback from some of my members, on what's going on for them, and I realized that the 2 generations, the generation that you come from and I come from and the current generation that are going through it, um, we didn't have much information. I mean, nobody talked about it, right? With the current generation, they are talking about it, but there is so much fear around it that everything becomes pathologized and disease state. So, like, brain fog,
Mm.
immediately what comes to mind is not only is it menopause or perimenopause, but it's also Alzheimer's about to arrive. And that kind of fear, um, should not. We need a better uh, middle ground in terms of having the information and not jumping to conclusions, talking about it, but not having it fear based. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I mean, I think that there are people who are pathologizing this, and I'll say this openly on this up, they're pathologizing for profit. So saying to women, this is a disease, you've got to have all this medication, you can't go through perimenopause and menopause without being medicated to the eyeballs. And actually, if we look at ancient texts, it wasn't as if they didn't know. They knew thousands of years, millennia on millennia. This has been talked about, written about, and approached. And if other parts of our lives were, should we say balance? That's a very Chinese medicine thing to say, and sounds a bit la, but this is what they talk about: this having a balance in the body. Then yes, you will have dryness. Yes, you will have heat, but it's not, and we're being overwhelmed because of so many other factors that aren't just about hormone. And this is the point that I say, so it's pathologized, there's fear. And when you look at the real data for Alzheimer's, it really doesn't appear as a real illness in people of 80. I was looking at some health statistics that came from Japan, the US, Australia, Europe. And when you actually looked at them, yeah, Alzheimer's was there, but people were 80 before it was really being seen as a cause of serious illness and death. But I wasn't there at 40. And so there's saying that, at 40, your brain fog, you're going to have Alzheimer's, but you're not there. There's a long life between that.
And partly, it's the access to incomplete medical information, without nuance. It's either yes or no. And I don't know about you, but I know that when I was going through school, Ayurvedic school, every time we studied a different disease, I got it. So oh, and and this happens in medical school, because we're constantly reflecting within ourselves. And so I got the imbalance, let's put it that way, because we work with balances as well.
Yeah.
Although some people are liking the word harmonize, which I sort of like better,
Yes. Yeah.
because we're living with the world. But yeah, the too much information, Googling, and then there's just not enough nuance. And so back to our topic of the day, the brain fog, yes, it's been around for a long time. And I just want to say one thing about the current pharmaceutical medical system is that they are trying to link brain fog to hormone fluctuations as well as hormone decline. And there is no study that says that this is the case.
No,
They
no.
cannot make a direct link. It is multifactorial, it is multi-contextual, and they simply don't have that kind of nuance, whereas Chinese medicine does, and Ayurveda does as well.
Yeah. And there are multiple factors that are actually um, there that can be all interacting with each other. So in Chinese medicine, we would say hormones may be part of it, but your gut health, seasonal factors, chronic fatigue, they can all be happening. So can inflammatory. And then now we're seeing, for example, long COVID playing in here, fibromyalgia, Lyme disease. All of these various factors are interacting to create, um, situations where brain fog could occur.
Yes, yes. I just wanted to say hello again to Nan. And Nan, we are always open to questions and responses. So if you have anything, feel free to just message us here or text
Yeah.
us, and we'd be happy to um, talk about it. Express if you have a perspective on brain fog, because we all experience brain fog at some point in time. It's like the opening where it's part of nature to have fogs. And so we have it in the brain. What also is occurred to me as I was doing the research for this, or rather review from an Ayurvedic perspective, what occurs to me is every woman has a different perspective on what brain fog feels to them. And I think that it's really good to differentiate. I cannot tell you, exactly what that brain fog might look like, but there are two ways that we can differentiate. One is lethargy, meaning the body is tired,
Yeah.
and the other one is brain fog, where the mind is tired. And
Mhm.
since these we cannot separate these two, and one the body acts on the mind and the mind acts on the body, we have to understand it from both perspectives. So even if there's a way for you to say, oh, my body is tired, and we pull apart these subtle differences, then
Mhm.
perhaps we won't go to that immediate Alzheimer's or whatever might
Yeah.
happen.
And I think that brain fog can have so many as you said, nuances to how it plays out, because there can be a, a numbness. It isn't just I'm foggy, but a kind of like a just, you know, nothing. There's a sort of a nothingness, a numbness in the brain. There can be a lot of inertia. There can be confusion. There can be heaviness. Um, and it can show up differently in our behavior. Yes, we can not remember our words and not speak clearly and stumble, but we can equally find it incredibly hard to focus and complete tasks, and particularly slightly more complex projects that would have seemed a breeze to us at another time. So the way it actually manifests can be multiple and can be changing.
Yes. And it does change, and um, w- from an Ayurvedic perspective, we're not so much naming the actual way it feels. Um, our client, my patient, might name it, but I would be looking at it from, so is it the mind or is it the body, right? Is it Is it an imbalance of the qualities of the mind, or is it an imbalance of the of the doshas, the three bioenergetic um, archetypes that we look at? Is it an imbalance within the elements? And once we look at that, we even break down those doshas even further into which specific each of the doshas have 5 different subcategories. I know we get really subtle, but we know which ones are going to create brain fog. And so it could be pitta in the brain. It could be prana, which is the chi, which is a specific kind of vata. It could be downward moving things. It could be up and out. Um, and then it could be a kapha could be creating. So each woman and man, because men do have brain fog, and it's not necessarily menopause, it is a function of something else, and brain fog can and will go away after perimenopause. After a while it will, and if there is a brain issue, it'll turn into something else. If it's a mind issue, it will become something else. So each of the doshas have different expressions of what brain fog is going to look like and what lethargy is going to look like.
Yeah. And so in Chinese medicine, it's really connected to the 3 organ systems. It's connected to the kidney. And there is, of course, a relationship between the energy, the yin and the yang energy of the kidney and the manifestation of perimenopause. And we know that it is usually a yin deficiency. But you can have a yang deficiency too, and you can have the two together just to be highly confusing for people. But the yang deficiency is one when we are very, almost borderline depression, very closed in, very inward. That can have a brain foggy element to it. It can also be a spleen chi deficiency, and I see that a lot as we go a little older, sort of the later end of menopause and that early postmenopause, there's often a spleen chi deficiency, and that can lead to the sort of anxious, not being able to confusion part of our brains. And that's often related to our diet. If we have a spleen chi deficiency, the spleen its role is to extract the chi from our food and to circulate it to the rest of the body. And that, if we have a diet, as we know, many Americans are eating a diet of 60-70% of it's made up of processed, ultra-processed food. It's not surprising that we're seeing this rise in spleen deficiency. And then there's connection to the heart and how the heart is functioning. So we've got this natural changes, but sometimes over excess or depression in the kidney. We've got the spleen and the heart imbalances. And so when these things are happening, we're just seeing brain fog is coming. And so the origin is different. So the treatment becomes different.
Exactly. The origins are different. So during perimenopause, and we also see an increase of allergies, right? So, so what happens is the sinus passages get clogged up, and that creates brain fog. So, and the reason for the allergy increase is because the body cannot digest the allergens properly. It doesn't know how to digest, assimilate, and eliminate. So the immune system comes in. And so there we have that, like you were saying, that gut. The gut and our diet is, and this is where Ayurveda goes first, is always into the gut before we even look at um, the balance of the doshas. It's like, okay, so what's happening in the gut? Can you digest what's coming in? Can you assimilate it? Can you properly process it? Do you eliminate it? And elimination happens in various forms. And so if we're looking at sinus issues, if the sinuses aren't draining through the eyes, through the nose, through the mouth, even through the ears, it's you might have brain fog because there's no good oxygen, no good kapha going into
Mm.
the brain at that point.
And it's interesting, Chinese medicine, we would talk also about sadness. And that's a lung situation in Chinese medicine. It's often the lungs where there's trapped sadness. So again, we're in that, clearing, being able to breathe out, release type of thing. And of course, in perimenopause, a lot of women are experiencing great feelings of grief and sadness, all of that is trapped, not coming out. And then, because I know that we do a lot of practices here on, as I said before, on these lung points just below the clavicle. We do a lot of massage work and release work here. And the amount of emotion that comes up in a very simple practice just shows me with women how much we're holding on to that huge array of grief for changes, for loss of youth, loss of fertility, maybe resentment, those sort of emotions, and when they can come out. But if they stay trapped, they can also contribute to this brain fog.
Yes. So there are, you were talking about deficiencies within the um, organ systems, right? And I would be talking about differences within, because we're talking about a lot of nuance with brain fog, right? Within each of the doshas. So the typical brain fog for women or for anyone really, um, we split them up into the three doshas, right? So we got vata, pitta, and kapha. Vata is the air and ether, and they tend to get more spacey, right? During brain fog, and what that is it's and that's how they describe themselves. So they become more forgetful, right? They are more distracted by everything that's happening. They start thinking that they are on this ADHD uh,
Yeah, yeah,
spectrum, and but they're not. It's just change requires some movement, and it's requiring movement of the body. So that's what happens with Vata women, and then Pitta dominant women. They start getting this mental fatigue, you know, close to the burnout. They start getting headaches, so they would describe their brain fog as headaches, and continue on that spectrum, it becomes migraines, right?
yeah.
And they're the ones who will experience more inflammatory conditions, whether it's in the sinus area, in the face, or in the gut, the liver, anywhere in the body. They're going to experience that. And kapha women are going to have difficulty focusing as well. They're the ones that truly um, describe it as fog because they have all of that water in them. They start becoming forgetful and they have decreased motivation. So each woman would describe it slightly differently, but it happens because, like in nature, the water element is coming in to try to cool the body down. And so the heat and the coolness together creates this fog of sorts. And in the emotional areas as well. But each woman, that and I think that's the difference between, we're looking at contrasting and similarities.
Mm.
The sadness, yes, absolutely. But we also will see it as high frustration and rage because of that
Yes.
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That sort of um resentment, I call this trappedness with frustration. Things aren't either what we had planned them to be, and we're reaching a watershed moment in our lives, or we feel trapped because we can't do what we want to do, or we're trapped in a body we don't really like anymore because it doesn't fit some strange external norm, whatever about it. So there are many reasons for that as well, and each are individual. But yes, there is this kind of unexpressed rage. So sometimes it's expressed, but it's not expressed in a constructive way. It just sort of comes out.
Right. And that's the typical Pitta woman, the fire energy feeling. The Kapha woman will express the sadness. Absolutely. And the Vata woman will just go into overwhelm and anxiety. So these are typical, and none of us are one single dosha, so we're always a combo. So we may go from one to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other. Sometimes it's simultaneous, and the frustration and the depression, the rage and the depression or the grief together are going to show up and lands us in bed for quite a while and not wanting to do anything, right?
Indeed.
Or
Indeed.
beating ourselves up for it.
Oh, we've got Audrey's joined us. Welcome, Audrey. Good to hear you.
Good to see you. Thanks for joining. So this is an open forum. We are speaking about um, perimenopause and brain fog from the view of TCM and Ayurveda. So feel free to ask any questions or comment. Whatever comes up for you, we are open to it.
Indeed. But so here we are. How do we then help women? Obviously, as we always say, our caveat is both TCM and Ayurveda are individual. So there's no one size fits all here. But there are some maybe approaches that are used. You mentioned there, Chitra, the role of the gut
Yes.
and diet.
Yes. And I think that that's really where we start from. There are general things that we can do because if we understand the quality itself of brain fog, which is the hot and the cold and the water, trying trying to come to some sort of balance, just like outside when brain fog happens, and what we're looking for is when these things are in full balance, we see rainbows out there, right? Who doesn't want a rainbow, right? But, the fog serves a purpose of cooling things down.
Mm,
And women are generally warmer, um, body temperature wise, which is why during pregnancy we're always looking to cool down the woman. So we still have this heat, and we need to cool down, and that's where the body itself has to cool down the various systems. So yes, so we're going back to all of the things that people are now speaking about with menopause. We're talking diet, we're talking lifestyle. We're talking sleep. We're
yeah.
talking de-stressing, all of
Yeah.
those things, slowing down. So if you're thinking that you're having brain fog,
Mm,
what do you do if you are driving in fog? You slow down, you turn on the lights,
mhm.
and you just go slower until you get clarity. You're not rushing through things, unfortunately. And so that's like the biggest thing I can advise beyond like getting into those other spaces is really to understand we call it brain fog for a reason because it's similar to something in the outer world. So
Mhm.
so if we can understand what we do during fog, so if you decide that you've got dinner to make that has to be done on the table at 5 o'clock and it's 4:45, or well, actually fog happens also early in the morning, but if it's 4:45 and you've got a half hour drive and you're rushing, right? You're going to get yourself into an accident. And the same is true when there is brain fog. So we want to take control of our schedules. We want to take control of our calendars and give ourselves space between activities. Sometimes we don't have the opportunity to, but giving space and taking a pause in between phone calls, in between Zoom calls, in between having a meal and washing the dishes. In between, so you're always taking that little break
Mhm.
and that pause in between until you gain clarity as to what needs to be done next, because that Vata woman has forgotten where she put her glasses because she knows that her next thing is to do something else, or her keys she's forgotten, rather than saying, "Okay, I'm eating. And that's all I'm doing. And now I'm going to go outside, and that's all I'm doing." So being able to stretch the mind, stretch the time, stretch the focus a little bit, gives yourself some more space, some more clarity. So that's number one. And then
Yep.
we can get to the gut.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, totally in alignment there. That, and it's, I think we're really seeing this elevated conversation around brain fog because women just have so much on their plate now. I can tell you that we've been sold this lie that we could have these wonderful careers and do all these things. Oh, and by the way, just carry on doing all your household stuff. No, and so in the end, we're just overloaded with actual labor, emotional labor, and there just aren't the hours. And then we've got so much noise in our world. It comes at us through phones, through screens, through appliances that never shut up, that hum in the background and beep and whatever. And so we have to find a space. And you're right, that. And then, yes, the gut. Um, Helping to reduce inflammation, regulating gut microflora, increasing pre and probiotics into the gut. So really strengthening. I think now we know in the Western medicine is catching up and talking about gut brain axes, and that's both the vagus nerve, which is the slowing down, but it is also the actual relationship in the microflora context there as well. So
Yes.
really, we know that those two things, and it's interesting. We didn't have the words in Chinese medicine, obviously, but we knew it, and we had the solutions, um, pretty much a long time ago, even without having the science.
Yeah, yeah. We named Ayurveda named these things. They've named each one of these things. It doesn't sound like microbiome, but we've named them. We've named the different qualities where they exist. So one of the things that um, is happening. So I spoke about allergies, right?
Mm.
So allergies occur when the body isn't digesting all the food that's in there, as well as foods that haven't been digested properly. So like your closet, if you buy too many clothes, you start shoving things into the clothes and into the closet and say, "Oh, okay, I'm going to deal with this later."
Mm.
declutter, and you just keep shoving the thing into the closet because you don't wanna deal with it, or you don't have the energy to deal with it. That's usually the case, that the body simply doesn't have the energy to deal with the variety of foods, with the preservatives. Preservatives in foods are made to so that it doesn't break down. Well, guess what? Can't break it down either. So so we have to find a way to do the detoxification, and fibrous foods help, but it doesn't completely help. And so and this is one of the reasons why intermittent fasting has come up, so that the body
Mhm.
doesn't get new things in. It can start working on older foods. Um, in I agree with intermittent fasting, but not so much, because it's not individualized, and we should not be eating anyway between 8 p.m. and
Six,
6
seven.
a.m. in the morning, or whatever that is. We shouldn't be eating anyway.
Mm.
So there's no point. But intermittent fasting, there is a fast that you can do, that you can be, and it shouldn't be a water fast. It should be a gentle broth fast, so that you get proteins. Mung bean is one of the higher proteins out there, as far as beans are concerned. So if you made yourself a mung bean soup,
Yeah.
just the broth, and ate that for a day, you would be getting your proteins, you would be getting whatever you need, and allowing the body to rest. And when the body rests, the digestion rests, it's going to work on things
Mm.
that it didn't have the energy to digest prior, right? And so some of those things are going to go out. Now, there's some other toxins within the system that need more than just an intermittent fast. There are specific herbs for that,
Yeah.
but um, but that's where we start. That's what you can do for yourself. So if you're finding that you have brain fog and then you're like craving sugar, oh, it happens a lot because we want
Mhm.
energy. That's the eh, that's the exact thing that you should not be doing, because that is the lack of intelligence in the body.
Yes.
That is the microbiome, the ones that are not helpful talking to you,
Yeah.
and
And
they're
that's
taking over your mind.
interesting because if we were to see that craving for sugar, I would say to you that's a clear sign of spleen chi deficiency, because the element associated with the spleen is earth and its flavor, sweet. So if you start to crave, that's a clear sign again that you're not taking in enough of the right nutrients, so you're not able to process them properly, and so you crave more and you go to the extreme. And of course, that does the opposite. It's you flip the other way. But yeah, you mentioned, and herbs are a big part. Chinese medicine is very herb centric. Usually, they are formulas, and there are multiple different types of formulas that are developed for brain fog conditions. They're all tweaked and individualized. So I don't sit here and read out, you take this and this. You couldn't buy them anyway because they would be made for you. But the interesting one that has a big role for the gut, that is something you could take, and there's a single herb, and that's ginseng.
Mm.
And in Korea, Asian ginseng, what's known as a red ginseng. Not the white one you eat or the Siberian, but the red Korean, because it's actually dried for longer. And that has been shown to actually have a really positive effect on the gut microbiome. It's very probiotic, but of course, not to eat it in a capsule. Nobody in China eats that in a capsule form in quantities. It's used in a soup. It's added in as a root to the soup, or you make tea, like a concoction tea, and you brew it and you add some honey, and then you can sip that, and that's seen as highly beneficial for brain fog conditions of various types. Um, Only caveat to that is if you are someone that is very hot, if you're someone who has a lot of serious heat, night sweats, that is not for you because it does tend to sort of move things in the body. It's a yang action. So you're moving and clearing in the body. But something that has been used and now has lots of science in Chinese medicine since the 60s, they've been studying it in Chinese hospitals and are coming here and saying yes. And interestingly, that's been shown in kind of Western terms as well. Much more kind of seen as one of the few. The other would be lion's mane, which is that mushroom, and the ginkgo biloba, but not to the same extent. So ginseng, loved in Chinese medicine for so long, does really have a role in the brain fog space.
Hmm.
Mm.
That's good to know. Good to know about the red ginseng. Ayurveda, we take a slightly different approach. Um, mm, what we there is a yes, a lot of things are formulaic, with various many herbs in it. But there are times where we will do single herbs. However, one of the most common herb formulas is triphala. That's triphala, which means three fruit. And what it is it balances all three doshas. So it doesn't make any one dosha negative or positive. And triphala is often given to people with constipation. So constipation will create brain fog. And so what it's actually doing is it's moving everything within the gut to help move out any toxin, anything on a very gentle way. Normally, I wouldn't be speaking about some of these herbs because
Mm.
we tend to take too much or too little uh, for it to be effective. We just don't have a good um, tradition on how to take herbs. We don't have good understandings here in the West. We think that if a little is good, then more is better, and that's not necessarily true. So that's one literally dealing with the gut. And one of the main herbs in it, one of the main fruits in it is amla, which I think you guys have this in Chinese medicine, gooseberry.
Yeah. Yes, we do. Yes.
Super high in vitamin C. So anything that's antioxidants, right? Um, but it's got a different flavor. It's really excellent to help with the gut. The other thing that we will do is like lion's mane, which is really good for memory. It's really good. It works on the brain quite a bit. We do Brahmi. Uh, Brahmi is no, there is no Chinese medicine equivalent of it. Like licorice, we will do licorice, and Chinese medicine does do
But
licorice. We also do
yeah.
something called shatavari. Um,
Mm.
shatavari, I guess it could be like the ginseng because it's an adaptogen of sorts. But it is cooling. So this is specific for women, who for women it's the yin for the yang of ashwagandha.
Ah,
So
yes.
we'll do some shatavari, but really when we're having brain fog, we really want to look at, okay, so what's going on with the brain? What's going on with the mind? Is there too much stress? Do we need to cool that down? Do we need to take something for the mind, like maybe even a little smelling some lavender oil?
Yeah.
Something that will de-stress, that might help until you come back online because the
Mhm.
mind to come back online, and then we're looking at something for the body. So you want to do both of these
Yeah.
things.
Great.
And you wanna eat foods that are appropriate. So if you're doing summertime, we don't have much digestion capacity. We're just not hungry. So
Uh,
you're not going to eat the heavy meat and potatoes at this point in time, or even foods that are incompatible, that are difficult to digest. So or even large meals at this time. So you wanna really balance this brain fog to the circumstance.
yes, so that we don't get a sort of a stagnation,
Yes.
which leads to this. In Chinese medicine, that can be qi, body fluids, blood, and there are lots of different reasons to that. And we're often also doing physical movement, of course, because qigong is part of healing here. So there are a lot of qigong practices that can help to get chi and blood and body fluids to move. And often they look like nothing. You tell people, lift your hands in and out, together and down. There are small sequences you can learn, and they're really simple but very effective. You might do those in sets of 3 through the day. And of course, head massage. There are lots of, the head is obviously full of acupuncture, acupressure points, absolutely hundreds of them. But there are little sequences where you can press here from byway, a little behind byway. You can press to the front, you can come to the temples, you can press behind the ears, and you can follow little simple sequences, pressing those, not terribly hard, which can really help to release some of that fogginess in the brain. And those sort of practices have been, carried out for forever, you know, and then you can do them. People may think you look odd. Well, what do you care? You could sit quietly somewhere for a few moments and do various head-related massages to just help clear where you're stuck.
As you were saying those things, I was going to bring up marma, which is, the Ayurvedic form of acupressure.
Mm.
And, I was going to offer the same 4 points on the top of the
Mm.
head. So
Yeah.
I think that's so cool that these 2 traditions, they communicated with one another, and then they developed for their own, cultures, and which is what we're doing here. The other kind of, therapy that we would be doing, depending on what's happening, is yin yoga would be the movement for us, just holding
Mm.
postures, um to it, or it's just the holding of the postures. It would be, you could even do yoga nidra would be an excellent way to calm down. So we're looking at that stress level, but the head therapies that we'd be doing is, we have a therapy called Shirodara.
Mhm.
Shiro means head and Dara means pouring. So what we do is we pour oil on the head, which is for about a half hour. So it's warm oil that is poured over the head, and it goes back and forth. You're lying down. It gets into your scalp. It oils absolutely everything. Your hair comes out phenomenal. And it calms the mind and it clears the mind. So it's a really phenomenal thing. The other thing that can be done that's easily accessible, is a neti pot, right? Because I
Ah,
spoke
yes,
about
yes.
the sinuses, right? So we're clearing the sinuses, and then we can also oil the we can do eye washes, and that will
Mm.
reduce some of the stress in the eyes. We can do ear oiling, which will help some of that, remove some of that sinus. Everything that we're doing is to move out that combination of stuck water, that stagnant
Yep,
water, right?
yep.
And then we could do, no no nasya. The English and the Sanskrit just got stuck. Not brain fog, not word
Yeah.
loss, they got stuck.
Duck.
This happens to uh, multilinguistic people quite often. Did it when I was 8 years old. Um,
Yeah. Oh.
so those are some things, and then, of course, breathing practices. Anytime you could do
Mhm.
alternate nostril breathing, you could just slow down, focus on the breathing. Any of those kinds of things are going to clear the brain. So we're looking again, clearing, bringing light, clearing, bringing light, slowing down. Same
Yeah.
thing as you would do during fog.
Yeah. And in Chinese medicine, the other thing we do is shaking. And shaking
Mm,
is a very popular practice. So you're very deliberate. You shake wrists, bounce up and down on your heels. You shake out your hips, your ankles. And you shake for between 2 to 10 minutes. I
mm.
have, and you're really, really, really releasing all that stuckness
I
from
would
the body.
imagine so.
Very downward movement, like you're shaking things out. You don't have to be really hard about it. And obviously, you only bounce up and down on feet if you have no projects in knees or ankles, but you can really think of pumping yourself to the ground, working that lower energy point, the yongquan, which is on the sole of your foot. You're driving down into the earth, letting go of what's stuck. Very powerful, and you'll see people do that, and it's just sort of like this liberation, this afterwards, like you've let go of a heavy load.
I have to remember to do that more often, is to just, just sometimes shake. Yeah, that's a great, great practice.
Yeah,
Um,
and one that anyone, can do. You could do it in a chair. You don't have to do it standing up. You just but letting go, and we do hold. And I think I've noticed over the years, and when I used to work more with massage and acupressure or other people, how much tension women held in the hip, in that pelvic area, was like a rock. And you think, what if we can learn to let go in that area? Just wiggle. I mean, no one's looking. Just wiggle it about. We're letting go of so much that we've held on to now. It's a real tension area.
yeah, yeah, it is. It is. And I think that the beauty of the shaking, all of the things is that we actually are holding tension everywhere. And if we're just looking at the lymphatic system, allowing it to flow, just extra movement is going to help it move stuckness because it doesn't have its own pumping system other than using muscles, right?
Mm.
So that you want to do that. I wonder, shaking the head would be a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
we've had to sort
it's
of shake, and
okay.
it's interesting. You just kind of like really shake, and and there are different versions of that too. Um, but the more loose you become, then the more you're able over time to just let everything go. And
Yeah.
I mean, I do that at the start of a Qigong class with lots of people that come in and they're like, everything is up in your head from the down. First thing we do is we shake.
Yeah, we do that I would do that in yoga class as well,
Mm.
specifically after holding a posture. But we're doing, yeah, I would do more breathing at the beginning and then the shake after holding,
Yeah.
especially like in yin yoga to
Mm.
to move
Mm.
things around. Do you think that the various techniques are coming from in Chinese medicine are coming from different locations in China, and
Uh,
that not one is correct? Because that's what happens in Ayurveda, is that
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, first you recognize that there are different regions of China.
Mhm.
There's a lot that traditionally came out of Tibet as well, that sort of is in China, but obviously is a separate country, yeah, despite what the Chinese think. China has a long history. Things have grown up from both the more formal schools and the more folklore. And there are, of course, 7,000 different forms of Qigong. And they have grown out of different roots. Some of them are monastic in background, others are martial in background, some are very medical, some are thousands of years old, and some have risen within the last 20 years or so. So these are evolving things, and they borrow from each other, so that you'll suddenly be doing one form of Qigong, and goodness knows I only know about 8 of them, and you suddenly, well, I've met that similar move in another form, because it's kind of a borrowing and growing and shifting and changing like that. So I think it's a kind of living, breathing thing, rather than this is the way, and then we do lots of tests to say it's allowed to be different. Things kind of grow and evolve because
Right.
it's more fluid than that.
Mm. Yeah, and that's how I've always viewed Ayurveda as well. Tibetan medicine, a lot of it is in Sanskrit. A lot of Tibetan, so you can see the Buddha coming out of India, going to Tibet, moving out. And the same happened with the medicines, I think.
Mm.
And and I think that's the important thing of what we can learn from that here today is it, it, wherever we live. I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where it is hot and dry, and there are some mm, understanding our culture, our specific regions, our climate, what we do during the day. All of these are nuances, and all of these things need to be added into our health, and we need to understand it. We cannot do this one size fits all. We cannot do, well, this is brain fog, so you take a hormone for that
Yeah, yeah,
because you're estrogen. Well, no, that's not the case. And even, what you and I are doing here, and I think that this is really important work, is that we are trying to translate it for a larger population that is outside of India and East Asia, and
yeah,
outside of China and Tibet, into various cultures, whether it's Sweden,
mm,
Australia, Antarctica, Alaska. Each
yeah,
one of these are going to have a different nuanced understanding. So, and what we do in the West with the medical system, we just flatten everything out
mm,
completely. It's either yes or no, right or wrong. You either fit in or you don't fit in. You're
yeah,
either, it's my way or the highway. And it's so frustrating.
yeah,
I can't even
yeah.
begin.
Yeah. And we are only talking about like the person here, whereas I think we both come from traditions where we understand the role of ancestor and what happened before. And then there's also, as you said, there's climate, there's who you are constitutionally, both in Chinese medicine and in Ayurveda, and that shifting and changing. You've got the passing time, so that we are this complex web. And so there is no one size fits all. And I think that's sometimes why women take hormones if they take them, and that, sometimes that's appropriate for them to do. Um, but it doesn't always give them the result that they had hoped, or it does something different, or it brings up another issue for the
Yeah.
person. And sometimes they take herbs off the shelf. And then it's always interesting for me how then Western practitioners will say, well, it's the herb that's wrong. And instead I'm thinking, well, that may be constitutionally really wrong for that person to take that herb. And we very rarely take herbs in single use, which is why ginseng here is so interesting. Um, And so you can't, it's not the herb, it's the person, it's the match between the two. It's the wrong herb for that person or the wrong dosage or something. And I think that lack of nuance leads to people not being empowered in their own health and saying anything. We're not tailoring things for you and the changing you, because if we make a shift, then you've changed. So we have to make another change. It's not like, here's this drug, take it forever kind of mindset ever. It's meant to be short to make a change in order for you to be able to heal. There may be a time when you need to come back to the practitioner, but then you're not going to be given the same thing you were given before because you've changed.
Right. And, prime example is food. I have so many women who've come to me saying, why is this happening now? I've always eaten healthy.
Mm.
And the first thing I say to them, so you've been eating salads, cold salads, and they go, yeah, that's healthy. And then I say to them, so have you gotten more gassy lately? Yes, that means you're not digesting the food. So even healthy habits that we have developed have to be examined, but not in a harsh way, because the body is intelligent. It knows how to adjust itself. But after a while, it's like, well, you don't eat the same food every day of the year. It's not in season, so just don't do it. Uh, so we have to have more nuance. It cannot be flattened into good and bad,
No,
because good for me might be bad for you.
exactly. Yeah. So we've had some wonderful people join us. Uh, we'd love to invite you if you have any questions or any comments that have come up in listening to Chitra and I talk about things we're passionate about.
Which is why we'll continue doing this every single week.
Absolutely. Yeah.
At this at the same time. And if you have any suggestions for any topics that
Mm.
having to do with perimenopause, I understand that this, talking about your own experience on a platform like this may be feel unsafe.
Mm.
And so know that it's okay. You don't have to talk to us about your specific issue. You might want to ask something that you're curious about. Um, but if you wanted to speak to us privately, we're both doctors, practitioners with decades of experience behind us. We understand the need for safety, for confidentiality, and so yeah, we're just open to any and all of these things. And if you have a topic, we've got a list of topics. Trust us.
We
It gets
do, we do.
longer every time.
But we would love to hear, because what's coming up for any one of you, or curious or questions or actual, that helps us to tailor to make sure that what we talk about is relevant, because if you have that, there's probably thousands of people out there that have that too.
Exactly, exactly. And if you're not subscribed to Art of Menopause
And
or
part of menopause.
Heart of Menopausing, because we never
No,
really stop.
no.
We just go on.
We do.
But we don't have to suffer through it.
We don't.
So, yeah. Well, it's been great. I'm glad to that we got back together this week,
We
and
did. After last week's little breakdown, but here we are.
life happens.
It does. And thank you to everyone that joined us. We're so grateful for you being here.
Peace.
Yes, love. You all. Bye.
See ya.